As 2020 comes to a close, we are looking at the biggest workforce stories of this year. Jessie Bur is associate editor of the Federal Times. Courtney Buble is staff correspondent for Government Executive. They've made their choices for the most important personnel stories of the year. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for coming on. Jessie, start with you. Your top choice is the assessment changes to federal hiring policy. Why'd you choose that one?
So the assessment changes have really strong potential to alter the demographics of the federal workforce by placing an emphasis on people's training and skills that they may have acquired outside of traditional education. I think you're going to get far more people applying for federal jobs that are they don't have higher education degrees and can kind of change the face of the federal workforce. And I think it also has the potential to make the federal job posting make a lot more sense and be a lot more manageable for people trying to apply.
What do we know about the way that agencies will change the way that they write those job descriptions, if anything yet, in order to accommodate the way that they're assessing the potential employees?
So they're required that unless the job legally has a degree requirement, the agencies must make sure that the job placements discuss the potential for assessments and let applicants know that they don't need to have a degree to satisfy requirements. Other than that, there's going to be some changes that will be individual to each agency. OPM is leaving a lot of the decisions up to how agencies want to structure their own assessments and what kinds of tools they want to use.
Are we getting any sense of a timeline of when agencies will or are already starting to make these changes, Jessie?
Currently, agencies are working on the process of developing the kinds of assessments they want to use, and they are supposed to be implementing and starting to apply these to jobs within the next couple of months.
Courtney, welcome. It's great to have you on the program. Your choice for number one this year was the transition to telework and the way that agencies have made that transition. Why did that jump out at you as the most important thing to happen this year?
Well, the coronavirus pandemic, which has been raging throughout the country for almost a year now, has really, dominated every aspect of our lives. And many agencies didn't have telework policies prior to the pandemic. So the story that Government Executive did on March 9th about the guidance from the Office of Personnel Management with the needed flexibilities that agencies could offer their workforce was very important. There's over 2.1 million government employees, many of which weren't teleworking before the pandemic. So this offered them the flexibilities that they would want to take advantage of. And, many agencies have begun the process to bring employees back into offices. But now that we're in another wave of the pandemic, who knows if they're going to revert back to more telework and if this could be a long-lasting policy after the pandemic is gone.
What are some of the implications that you've been following, if any, of what the long-term telework prospect looks like, Courtney?
Well, it seems that many agencies have been just as productive, if not more, via telework. I know there's been some confusion and questions with various agencies about coronavirus guidance and telework overall, but it seems like the workforce really likes it. And even the Defense Department, which traditionally can't telework because of the need for classified rooms and SCIFs, they're finding ways to work around that and to kind of be a leader in the agencies of expanding more telework.
How much of this success that people have been following around telework, Courtney, can be attributed to management techniques, do you think, and how much can be attributed to technology?
I would say it's about 50-50. I think you need to have good management in order to, keep up morale with agencies and make sure people are actually doing what they need to do from home. Many people have kids or they have other responsibilities at home that could be a distraction, but also technology is a very important part of that because you literally can't work from home if you don't have a good connection or a good, network set up. So I think you kind of need both in order to fully be successful.
Jessie, your second choice was how the pandemic might change the approach to federal telework. What are you seeing as far as what telework looks like 6 months from now, a year from now, once people have an opportunity to get vaccines and could come back to the office if they chose to?
So I think as Courtney brought up, the difference between federal agencies of some having telework programs prior to the pandemic and some not has really changed because every agency has been forced to implement some kind of telework for at least some of its employees. And I think the big difference here is sort of like the proof in the pudding that telework can actually work and can be more productive and provide employees with more flexibility. It's also one of the tools that the Office of Personnel Management has consistently said can help recruit new talent. And so I think even once the vaccine comes out and federal employees are able to more safely work from home, I think agencies are going to have a much more open mind to allowing employees to work part-time telework or even full-time telework to get access to people who might not physically be in the same area as the agency.
Courtney, that safely coming back to the office concept was your choice for number 2. What are you watching there as agencies start to release their plans and as people start to come back to the office in greater numbers?
There's two things I'm really watching. The House passed legislation the end of September that would institute certain requirements that agencies would have to do in bringing their workforces back into the office. Senate Democrats also introduced their own version of the bill that day. And while it didn't pass, many agencies have been doing this on their own. So I've been looking at the reopening plans and any issues that have been arising with that. And another thing in a related manner is Representative Jerry Connolly of Virginia. He has been tracking what inspectors generals are doing to oversee agency reopenings. He has a tracker for the 24 IGs at the major agencies and how they've been, reviewing the plans. And so far, all except one are doing some type of review. And the one that isn't doing a review is the SBA. And they're a little busy right now overseeing the emergency lending and loan programs, but they said at some point they will get to that. So those are the two main things that I'll be looking out for.
Courtney Buble and Jessie Bur, thank you both very much for coming on. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.